After I had left the office building and drove back to my office, I promptly gave my laptop to my boss, telling him that it had become non-functional and that I required a replacement. I told him that someone had accidentally spilled coffee on it during my last trip and that it short-circuited. In reality, I made a pit stop on my way back to a hardware store and bought the most powerful magnet I could find and ran it over the hard drive several times. I wasn't risking that thing ever turning on again. So, after a few short minutes of the keep better track of your shit speech, he took the laptop and told me that I would get my replacement tomorrow. It was probably the most satisfying thing I could ever hear. For a few days, everything was back to normal. No more AI chat boxes, no more funky unprotected internet connections, no more disturbing images popping up on my screen. I was safe, until the nightmares started. I remember the first one I had very vividly, and I shudder when I think about it, but I'll tell you nevertheless. It began with me walking through a large city. I remember seeing large buildings and people walking up and down the streets on their way to work or shopping, whatever it is city people do. As I was walking, I found myself in front of a very large building, much taller than the rest, and for some reason, I wanted to go inside and take a look. So I walked through the front doors and took a look around. It was a fairly normal office building. People moving about, talking on their cell phones and whatnot, minding their own business. I realized that there wasn't much to see here, so I turned around to leave. But something was wrong. The doors to the building were gone. I walked forward thinking that there was some type of new door that blended into the wall or something, but nothing was there. I found myself very confused. So I turned back around again to maybe ask the receptionist where the exit was. But she was gone too. Everyone was gone. The lobby was empty. No sounds, no people, no furniture. Just an empty, white room. Now, I was scared. I began to panic and pace around the room, looking for any way out, but there was nothing. Nowhere to go. So I began to run at the walls, trying to break them down, but all my attempts were futile. After about 4 or 5 bum rushes against the walls, I sat down, out of breath, looking down at the floor. It felt like I was there for hours, just staring at the ground, when suddenly, I heard a small whisper. I looked up to see a black silhouette of a man facing me. He stuck his hand and whispered ever so slightly, "Trying to leave?" For some reason, I trusted him. Don't ask me why, but I did. But I felt like this figure was going to show me the way out, somehow. So I took his hand and got up and said, "Yeah, can you show me the way?" "Of course. Follow closely." He turned around and began to hover away from me, so I followed him. I don't know how, but he began to create hallways and staircases out of the room I was trapped in, leading me all sorts of way, as if though a giant labyrinth. We climbed up and up, till we finally reached a hallway that had a door at the end of it. It was then that he stopped moving and turned back towards me. I could make out a faint smile on his face as he pointed towards the door. "Is this the exit?" "It is." So I grabbed the door handle and began to turn it as he placed his hand on my shoulder. I turned to look at him, and his words made my heart race to this day. "But remember, you shouldn't ever stare." My eyes widened as his face began to morph into that of a horrible horned creature. His teeth became like razors and his mouth was filled with fire. I threw him off me and opened the door, only to find my worst fears behind it. Dead people were hanging from the ceiling, and blood covered the room like wallpaper. I screamed, but nothing came out. I turned away from the room and ran as fast as I could, back the way I came. But it was not long before I realized that I was hopelessly lost in this labyrinth that the demon had led me through. I ran and ran, but I couldn't find the way out. There was no way out. I was trapped in this nightmare. I started hurling myself at the walls in an attempt to leave this evil place, but nothing was working. I thought I was going to die here, and that was when I awoke. I was drenched in sweat, my heart racing and my breathing was heavy. I looked around and it took me a couple of minutes to realize that it was just a nightmare. A horrible, horrible nightmare. I got up out of my bed and walked over to my bathroom to wash myself of all the sweat I had doused myself in. As I washed my face, I noticed something in the mirror. A small light coming from my room. I turned around and I saw it. Sitting at the foot of my bed. My personal computer. I slowly walked over to examine it, thinking I had accidentally left it on before going to bed, which I rarely do. So I bent down and picked it up. The command prompt was open, but it was blank. No prompt or anything. Just a little black box with the white cursor flashing at me. It was then that I remembered that I didn't even use my computer before going to bed. In fact, I had left it in the kitchen. My webcam light turned on, and the command prompt began to type. What's the matter? Bad dream? Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I appreciate it a lot. And also, big thanks to my patrons, and if you want to support me, the link to my Patreon is in the description below. And if you want to hear more scary stories in the future, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Thank you.